I promise, it's just in my hands. That night, the exile Orlek returned to the Commonwealth. He was to be the last. The stars had faded, and the cycle of the rites had run its course. Boner check. Good thing I'm wearing pants. I pass. He found the Commonwealth in the midst of a revolt. Without liberated exiles to support it, Volfred Sandold's revolutionary plan had proved untenable. Yet his agents and his sympathizers rose to the occasion anyway. See, you called for the boner check. Too late. Too late you called for the boner check. Should have asked when I was talking about Pamitha and Sandra and me sharing a nest. They did not get far. The rulers of the Commonwealth had the agitators rounded up to be exiled at the break of dawn. It was then that the winged high-wing remnants seized their chance. Oh shit. Somehow they flew across the blood border without raising alarm. They showed the leaders of the Commonwealth no mercy. By first dawn's light, the Commonwealth had fallen. The new Saurian Union declared its sovereignty in the next year. Among the changes its elected leaders ushered in, they vowed never to cast their people into exile, and they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding literacy. Things worked out. Today, we still remember all of this. And remember the exiles of the downside whose deeds led to the dawning of our age, whether they returned or not. It's everybody! Hey, everyone! Oh, here's our epilogue! After the rites had ended, Hedwyn decided to make the trip down to the base of Mount Aladiel the long way, and invited the other remaining members of the Nightwings to join him. I mean, if I had to choose between all the hot characters in this game, I would die from choice paralysis. As he was unable to return to the Commonwealth, the news of the country's upheaval brought him much anxiety and sometimes joy. One day, as he was wandering through the downside prairie, he could scarce believe his eyes at what he saw. Thick horns, they get me. He could scarce believe his eyes. There, her wings as brilliant... his girl! Her wings as brilliant as the sky was the harp Fukani Shang. The two had shared a love that led to Hedwyn's exile. He longed for freedom so that he might see her once again. She knew that he was alive, for by then his name was quite well known throughout the Saurian Union. The practice of exile had ceased, but she cast herself down anyway. There in the downside they remained together. Through it all, he oft confided in his friend Jody. The two would always remain close, and Jody and Fukani would eventually become good friends as well. Jody's making strides to not be racist. And she's got two harps that she's friends with. This is excellent news. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Jody, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might be free again together. They had failed to return to their homes, each in turn, yet they succeeded in staying together. The real freedom was the friends we made along the way, guys. Hedwyn came to realize they found a certain freedom after all. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not all able to remain in contact thus, Hedwyn thought of each of them often, and so in turn did they think of him. Tizo. Oh. Once the rites had ended, the imp Tizo had a job to do, quite unlike most exiles trapped forever in the downside. The lone minstrel asked that he watch over the black wagon, which the night wagons had used extensively for travel and for shelter all throughout their quest. Tizo obliged, for he knew that wagon as well as its drive imp inhabitants perhaps better than anyone. What became of the wagon exactly was never verified, as evidence of Tizo's thorough work. After that, he liked to while away his days with any of his friends, or else with fellow imps. V-Bowl 2! Thank you so much for following. I appreciate it so much. You've got us one step closer to transforming this face into a face caked with makeup and turning me into a beautiful, beautiful man. Or something else entirely. The choice has not been met, but thank you so much. If you're here with me, I'm so happy to share the finale of this game with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. After that, fellow imps. He would visit his friend Kay. At every opportunity, she was among the few who could consistently interpret what he meant. They were always close since first they met. Sandalwood sometimes called for his assistance, and Tizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the lone minstrel. He often chirped about the reader. That's us! That's me! Guys, he talks about us. With whom he built quite a rapport. The reader understood him perhaps better than anyone else. Indeed, Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time with the Nightwings and their many adventures throughout the land that was always his home. Other than that, Tizo would sometimes help interpret for messenger imps relaying news to and from the Saharian Union. Despite having gained significant celebrity abroad, he never let it go to his head. Yeah! Stay fucking humble. And he would go fishing in the Sea of Solace at every single chance he got. He still has his hobbies. Gilman. The Worm Knight Sir Gilman had elected to go into exile as penance for his failure to uphold his military obligations to the Commonwealth. To him, earning back his freedom was tantamount to erasing the shame of his past. His honor was at stake more so than anything. Yet when it became clear to him that he would not go free again through the rites, he readily accepted the outcome, for he knew by then that much more was on the line. He regretted not having had a chance to contribute directly to the events that transpired in the Commonwealth, though he was pleased to hear the outcome. The conclusion of the rites and the fall of the Commonwealth made clear to him that his days as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstances, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly just in case, especially his fleet-footed friend, Rookie Greentail. From time to time he would seek guidance from one of his former comrades, Big Bertrude, much his elder and a wellspring of perspective on his life decisions. He was always grateful for the counsel of the reader, and would regale her over and over about the time they squashed the spawn of unfathomed Plurnus. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Yeah, that's right, let go of the past, man. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was his first step towards gaining a bit of self-respect. Hell yeah. That's the real goal. Self-respect. That's the next follower goal. I get 50 followers, I gain self-respect. Yeah. Until then, I'll be a miserable pile. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. It'll never be... Yeah, that's one of those goals that keeps getting set back. Time to make 49 more accounts. Joke's on you. Self-respect is ever out of reach for this gentleman. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself. I've been saying that since day one, Gilman, to be renewed each day. All right, Sandra. What's up, Bae? After the cycle, that felt wrong to say. I don't think I should talk like that. That felt weird. That's like me, what's up, girl? Doesn't sound right. Sounds fucking weird. I apologize. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained at the downside, all of us, continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of the Rites or the Beyonder Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparition Sandra the Unseen. One possibility is that the lone minstrel took his leave, took the Beyonder Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyonder Crystal ever existed, or rather that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fever dream. She do got me hot, though. The bog dwellers of the southern bogs offer still another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object, in which the Sisters of the Arch had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment could have expired, along with the light of the stars. She could get her freedom? What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain. Other than that, may have meant that they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fates of Sandra and the Beyonder Crystal remain unknown. Those exiles of the Nightwings who claim to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence or perhaps a little fear. Oh, can you believe this, reader? Honestly, Sandra has appeared before you, as well you can see. They are so far from the mark with all this nonsense. I am wont to laugh. In fact, here goes. As a hot laugh. She laughs. She is referring to the account of her, since she does not care for it. Well, then let them gossip all they like. I merely wish that they would mention you at least in passing when next they are at it, though they shall never know even half of it, shall they? Chandra seems irritated by the incomplete account of what happened to her. The account was relatively flattering despite a lack of detail. Could have been worse. Perhaps making some light of the situation would make Sandra feel better. Remain silent. She's got a dark sense of humor. I'm going to humor her. I feel like I know her well. You indicate to Sandra that the real truth of what happened between you would perhaps make too vicious of a tale. I know I pronounced that wrong. To be told in such a format. Lascivious? Ugh, my ignorance is showing. And it's not a good ignorance. She makes a bemused sound at this. Perhaps that story ought to get out then, to think that they would go to all the trouble to make literacy accepted once again only to print such drivel. Anyway, let us keep going, lovely reader. We know the truth of it. That is what matters. She fades in the beyond her crystal for now, and you tuck it away safe. That's right. Alright, I guess we'll just keep going down the line here. What's up, Kay? Long after the rites had ended, Kay admitted that she knew well before the fact that she would not be going home again. At least she had a very strong feeling. She ended up not minding very much, because she had little to return to in the Commonwealth. Her sense of home had changed. She took to the wandering from one celestial landmark to the next, ever paying homage to the 8 scribes, who she believed had influenced all that transpired. She was no stranger to traveling alone, but was always happy to have company. Among her friends, she always remained close with Tizo, who, more so than anyone, could always make her laugh. She cited her relationship with Jody as the single most important in her life, feeling or revealing an overt and often offensive sexual desire. Yeah, that feeling's definitely there. If only I could pronounce it. Jody had always provided for her circumspect perspective and the wisdom of experience. I love their relationship too. Whenever she felt genuine doubt, which was not very often, she sought out the reader of the Nightwings. If there was anyone whom she trusted as much as the scribes, it was her. Oh, Kay always was devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Her gentle manner and unwavering conviction often helped them brave life on the downside, both with courage and with grace. Rookie. As it dawned on Rookie Greentail that the rites had truly ended and that he would never again return to the Commonwealth, he took it rather well, all things considered. If anything, he felt a burden lifted from him, as the need for constant travel on a deadline was no longer ever present. Even still, he had a family to support back on the other side and struggled to find means of helping them, despite the great expanse that stood between them. As it turned out, his quest for freedom helped build strong connections with some future business partners, and the birth of the Saurian Union opened new doors, even where he was. So the Saurian Union, our nation formed in 1839 after the fall of the Commonwealth. One day we all may stand shoulder to shoulder with a common cause. Before long, he had a real business going, created in partnership with Falcon Ron and the Bog Dwellers of Big Bertrude. It was not the exact life of luxury he always dreamed about, but he managed to get by, and his family's debts were all repaid. One of his orders of business was to seek out one of his old companions, Pamitha Thane, to whom he took a liking to during their quest for freedom. They bonded further over love of drink and supported one another through uncertain times that lay in store. He also kept in close touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tip-top shape as much as possible throughout the years. Everyone's interacting with each other, and I love it. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. Jody. After the rites had ceased, Jody journeyed back to the Downside Prairie, where she helped restore Hollowroot to livable conditions. She became well known and sometimes feared throughout the land, and many exiles often sought her out for aid with various matters. She refused much jobs except the ones she believed to be just. Yeah, that's right. You don't have to take orders. You don't have to do what you don't want to anymore, Jody. You can only do what you want to do. She remained close with Hedwyn all through this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. She kept an eye on Kay, who nonetheless demonstrated a surprising knack to get by on her own, though Jody was always willing to provide assistance, just in case. She continued training on her own, a regimen that grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness for the most part. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. Okay, it doesn't say if the plan actually succeeded, or if it just happened, the world just got better regardless. I'm not sure what happened with the plan, but I guess it doesn't really matter, because good things happened either way. She cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. She found a suitable environment to live in within the dismal region known as the Flagging Hands. There she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps then... She's 400? I take back what I said about her not being super attractive. For 400, she looks great. She's like Betty White. She ages very nicely. I take back what I said. Perhaps then even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she admired now for decades. He had made clear that he could not requite her feelings for him, but what could have been a hurtful dismissal led only to a deeper understanding between them. She maintained an unlikely kinship with the harp Pamitha Thane, whom she had known during their time together on the Nightwings. They each had different strategies for dealing with life's day-to-day annoyances, a subject that they both found vital, if not fascinating, to no end. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her work. Whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans, the work brought her a sense of purpose. She would stay. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but on the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days when the Nightwings made her that much more than a living legend. Oh, my girl. After the rites ended, Pamitha Thane parted away with the other Nightwings, stating that she needed time alone. She reappeared sometime after the fall of the Commonwealth, although she expressed mild surprise at the news. She claimed to have no knowledge of what went on, including what role the Highwing remnants had in the events that reshaped the world on the other side. For her part, Pamitha feigned little interest, making the point that they were stuck, and what happened elsewhere had little to do with them now. Someone with whom she kept in contact was the bog dweller called Big Bertrude. They would discuss all sorts of matters long into the night and sometimes hunt together too. Sometime later, Pamitha had an unexpected run-in with Rookie Greentail, with whom she had spent a fair amount of time while traveling with the Nightwings. Under these new set of circumstances, it turned out the two had more to talk about and rather more in common. That's right, she must have given her helmet, because she's not wearing it right now. They would often put to test which one was able to outdrink the other. It is unclear as to which of them prevailed in that contest in the end. Pamitha never saw her blood sister again, though did hear of her. By some accounts, Tamitha played no small part in the historic last days of the Commonwealth. In turn, Tamitha must have heard something of her blood sister. However, she never responded to Pamitha's attempts to contact her. Pamitha did not expect forgiveness from her at this point. Nonetheless, she kept on trying to reach out, she said, to ruffle up her feathers just a little bit. Having long since felt as though she had no home to call her own, Pamitha continued traveling about the downside. As the tempest swept across the land, changing its features, she found it in its sublime beauty, and in the starless night she could still see just fine. She said such travels tended to remind her of when she was younger and could fly unfettered. They left out the obvious part where she and I make a nest together, because that is implied. When the cycle of the rites ceased turning, it's like my headcanon, I guess, Volfred Sandalwood turned towards the starless sky and closed his eyes and prayed. It was all that he could do at that stage of this plan. He aspired to assemble with liberated exiles, representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned. I don't know if they lay eggs. I haven't read it. That doesn't mean the game doesn't say, but I don't recall them explicitly stating if she lays eggs or not. She's got a huge chest. That is certainly a reason that I am attracted to her. Returning and inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites ending sooner than expected, this ideal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood's own freedom, for instance, was now forfeit, yet the plan did have contingencies. Word reached him that on the night of what became known as the Sandalwood Uprising, hell yeah, Volford's agents carried out a desperate attempt to dispose the leaders of the Commonwealth. Put them in a space no greater than is needed. We shall cast them down at dawn. His agents and his sympathizers stormed the streets. It was vital to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature, but this proved to be untenable, especially after the Hyming remnants appeared. Trees, bulls, worm, bird, dog, snake, demon, and imp, I think, are the last two of the races of this game. Or I guess bulls mean. I guess by bull you mean demon. Sandalwood Uprising is a excellent candle idea. I agree, Mama. There is speculation that their well-timed assault may not have happened by coincidence, though Sandalwood denied any involvement and deeply regretted the bloodshed. He disappeared for a time after that, a self-imposed exile within his exile, for he felt such shame about this outcome. Nevertheless, the main thrust of the plan had been achieved. Sandalwood kept busy after that, as much as possible providing counsel from afar to those who would be at the forefront of the birth of the Saurian Union. Of course, being stranded in the downside meant that there was only so much he could do. Resting assured that the future of the nation was in capable hands, he turned his attention to the remaining exiles of the downside. They might never return to the new nation, but at least they could experience its triumphs and its struggles in some vicarious way, so he took to his old work, writing and printing. As literacy began to spread again throughout the Saurian Union, so too did exiles of the downside take to it. For his part, Sandalwood helped to teach as many as he could. More than that, he provided the material to read, a semi-annual report about the latest events both in the Saurian Union and the downside. Yeah, keep teaching, buddy. This periodical gave many exiles something to look forward to. One of his allies in all of this was the imp Tizo, with whom he traveled all across the downside. Sandalwood often cited Tizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future. Such was the creature's spirit. He welcomed the company of the reader of the Nightwings at every opportunity and counted her as a trusted friend and a keen editor. He was pleased to hear that his one-time friend Orlek had once more become a productive part of society, yet he spoke little of their time together. As Volford Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, it is said that he remained steadfast about two things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus, the freedom that the people had achieved. It was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who had stood with him each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, to commemorate his birthday, the people of the Saurian Union unveiled a monument depicting him and the Nightwings as imagined in their prime. While Sandalwood did not learn of it until much later, it is said that he was moved to tears then by the gesture. It has since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles and our cause. I have to pee super bad. I'm going to pause just for a second because it's driving me nuts and I don't want to lose any of the goodness. I'm back. Oh, I feel a lot better. Maybe a pound or so lighter. If I would have cried more, that pee wouldn't have taken so long. Speaking of pee, let's talk about Barker, because we know that boy pissing on stuff, and I love him for it. Oh, Ray, thank you for joining us. I don't think you're here anymore, but thank you so much for experiencing the finale with me. I love you. Having earned his freedom and the rights, Barker Ashpaws nonetheless felt distant from the society he had returned to. He realized he felt a longing for a different sort of freedom, closer to the one he had experienced on the downside with his packmates in the dissonance. He decided to continue conducting the rites just for the thrill of it. He bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. At first, this practice met with ridicule. But after the Commonwealth's collapse, the rites grew famous across the land, and Barker Ashpaws soon found himself with a growing number of fans. Count me among them. Others sought to learn the rights from him, and soon he had some real competition once again. His old feud with Rookie Greentail ceased meaning anything to him, and he forgot all about it amidst his new pursuits. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpaws, who led such a directionless existence to that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exile of his time, or more, was oft debated by those who watched him work. He's off to go commit more crimes, invent new crimes. All right, let's do Falcon Ron. Let's clean up this side of the board. When the rights drawn to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave to it one of his remaining trinkets which could not be sold. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth and newly minted coinage from the Saurian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp then and there. Though his trade remained a gray area from a legal standpoint, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's good to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement both with Rookie Greentail, whose own business had expanded, as well as Big Bird Shoots, forming a sizable trade conglomerate. Their goods are still known for their superior quality, though Falcon Ron assumes no liability for any side effects. Yeah, I'm glad it worked out for him. Let's do Sir Deluge. After his liberation from the downside, Sir Deluge was reinstated on the Commonwealth Blood Border as commander of an entire regiment. Yes, he was not pleased with that. He was too frightened to decline the opportunity. On the night of the Sandalwood Uprising, he received strict orders from the leaders of the Commonwealth. His regiment was to leave its post on the Blood Border and suppress the revolt. He didn't want to do that. Sir Deluge is mortified by this. Rather than obey, he did what he knew best, and fled before anybody noticed. No wonder they didn't put up much of a resistance to the High Wings. That was when the High Wing remnant swooped in and began their assault. Sir Deluge's entire regiment was eliminated, and he alone survived. Yeah! Yeah, you can't keep a good worm down. At any rate, the full extent of Deluge's cowardice would never have been known had he not owned up to it in his best-selling memoir, Confessions of a Worm Knight. A memoir about life in the Sea Dominion, the Commonwealth, and the downside. This knight has fled from all manner of things, large and small, theoretical and real. That's so funny. He's a freaking author. After the fall of the Commonwealth, he was discharged from military service. It was then he learned to read and write and discovered this later pension as an author. Oh my gosh, this is awesome! Of note, his writings of Sir Gilman were always very charitable, and he publicly expressed remorse for how he treated his fellow worm. Oh my god, that's so sweet. Oh. Okay, let's get ready for some sadness. After his liberation, Almer Oldheart was separated from his father, Dalbert, who had cast his son into the Shimmer Pool in his own place. The elderly Dalbert Oldheart, having achieved his goal of earning back his son's freedom, retired from the rites. By the time the cycle of the rites had reached its end, Dalbert's time had come as well. Almer did not learn of this until much later. Surely Dalbert would have wanted it that way. Would that he could have seen his son during his vital time. On the night of the Sandalwood Uprising, Almer became emboldened by what he saw happening all around him. It reminded him of his father's unwavering conviction to justice and doing what is right. Soon Almer entered the fray, fighting back against the Commonwealth despite the odds. Fuck yes! When the High Wing remnants mounted their assault, they must have seen whose side Almer was on, for they did him no harm. By dawn's first light, the battle was over. From that point on, he worked tirelessly to continue his father's work as a historian and curator of Kur culture. Oh, that's so sweet. He ended up providing invaluable perspective during the formation of the Saurian Union, as someone strongly connected both the Kurs and to his own kind. He found that the Oldheart lineage carried a great deal of respect and was able to bridge many cultural issues between his people as they transitioned into modern times. Not a day went by that Almer Oldheart did not think about his father and give thanks to him and speak to him at morning and at night. Oh my gosh. Would that the stars yet shone, for surely Dalbert's would be there among them, smiling down at his son and watching over him and his kin. Alright, Udmilde, what happened? After her liberation, Witch Udmilde fled to her native home in the southern bogs, rejecting all festivities and honors she could have received. She was never seen again during the events that transpired in and around the Commonwealth. Some of those with knowledge of the rites and the legends of the downside suggest he willingly cast herself back into exile to be closer to Eastlock. Other rumors suggest that her obsession with the pyromancy and the dark arts ultimately consumed her. Literally, perhaps? If she lives, for her kind are able to live for many centuries, there is no telling where. Her repeated threats of the return of Eastlock were thoroughly investigated and no credence was found to any of her claims. Alright. Not much happened there. She left us with a banging theme song, and I think that's good enough. All right. Dommy Mommy. As soon as possible, Tamitha Thane earned back her liberty. She rejoined her sisters of the Highwing remnants in the mountains north of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth believed that someone such as she could be rehabilitated through years spent in exile. Instead, her hatred for her ancient enemies only intensified. On the night of the Sandalwood Uprising, the Highwing remnants were poised to strike the Commonwealth in a decisive blow. They had received credible intelligence about the expected positions of the Commonwealth leadership and of specific weaknesses in the Blood Border defenses, anticipated that night. After a surgical procedure, Tamitha could fly again. Yeah! Almost as well as prior to her exile. She insisted on spearheading the attack with a squadron of the Harp's finest. They had ascended on their foes exactly as planned. Even the Blood Border was uncontested. The skirmishing in the streets of the Commonwealth that night made for the perfect diversion. Tamitha and her sisters fought with a terrible fury. Caught unawares, the forces of the Commonwealth were devastated, while the Highwing remnants suffered minimal losses. By dawn, the leaders of the Commonwealth had been eliminated, and Tamitha was flying back towards the mountain. Some of her sisters claimed that she was smiling, and give me a little chill. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Tamitha attended a debriefing in which she learned her blood sister Pamitha was an accessory to the successful outcome. Tamitha was very skeptical of this, but so many of the Highwing remnants honored Pamitha that Tamitha soon accepted the prevailing opinion, though grudgingly at first. Messenger Imp later arrived bearing some sort of message, seemingly from Pamitha. However, Tamitha turned it away. She forever resisted the impulse to forgive. After the rise of the Saurian Uno, Tamitha Thane continued to serve as flight tactician and remained respected and feared even among her kind. However, without a war to wage, she grew more distant even than usual. Those closest to her surmised that her inability to reconcile with her blood sister was at the heart of this, though for her part, Tamitha never once admitted to any such weakness. Manly Tenderstaff realized the rites had ended, but that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth, though through this ancient means he was outraged. He cursed the scribe, spewing forth such a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of his high status and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused on all his energies on attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via Messenger Imp, and used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using an elaborate pulley system. He attempted to retrofit a flying black wagon with superior propulsion. He tried an imp raft, a hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There's only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. Tenderstaff bankrupted his family in these vain attempts. At last, such was his shame that he retreated to the teeming woods of Black Basin to Cinderroot. There, he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the chastity who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or the latest news from the other side. I wonder what... I do regret I didn't give him his freedom. I feel like that would have been really funny, too. I know he tried praying, which is pretty wild to him. I would love to hear a mainly Tenderstaff prayer. Oh, dear scribes, it is I, your humble servant, Manly Tenderstaff. I know you are great, perhaps not as great as me, but perhaps in your great generosity and mercy you could find a way for this gentle sap to return to his prior position, full of orgies and nightlife, and doing nothing on the taxpayer's dime. It would thank me. It would be most appreciated of me. Yours sincerely, my own biggest fan, Manly Tenderstaff. Yeah, Ignarius. It's been a long time, my dude. Having returned to the Commonwealth, Ignarius experienced little trouble integrating back into society. For one thing, no one there had seen demons such as he, something he used to draw a crowd at. The public house he founded. It did not survive the fall of the Commonwealth, but his former establishment, the Starry Eight, an infamous tavern, it is widely believed that Commonwealth officials sometimes showed up incognito here to blow off steam, did. He was welcomed back and soon was put in charge. He never remained alone for very long, and took on many lovers in his time. Okay. However, he sometimes thought about the one he had called Curly Horns, and what became of her. Through those glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rites had long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated at that time. He's got a nice pomp. He's looking good. He's not like the most classically handsome, attractive demon that we've met, I mean, I'm pretty sure that goes to Orlek. But I mean, if you're into the tough guys, if you're into the bad boys with like a heart of gold, I think this guy could do stuff for you. I think he's a good dude. I know deep in his heart, he's a good guy. Orlek. In the aftermath of the final liberation rite, Orlek at last returned to his nation, one he had not seen in nearly 2 decades. He scarce recognized it. After all, it was in the midst of transformation. A social and cultural upheaval sparked by Volfred Sandalwood's plan. When Orlek witnessed the Commonwealth lashing out at its citizens amid the Sandalwood uprising, he looked on in silence for a long time. Then he took a step towards the fray. He knelt beside the closest injured man to him. Oh, he's doing battlefield medic stuff again. He staunched the man's bleeding and set an injured leg, then pulled him to a safer corner of the street. Orlek's old abilities as a physician had not left him during all these years. It was then that the Highwing remnant swooped in, adding still more chaos to the situation. Casualties mounted quickly, still Orlek remained calm. This felt no different to him than his days as a field medic on the blood border. He sustained no injuries that night and saved more than 24 lives. Hell yeah! History would know him as the Demon Doctor. Oh, fuck, that's a cool name. A term of endearment that stuck even after his horns started to recede. Oh, the horns go away? That's a bit of a shame, but I know he's still hot without him. He lent his skill and service throughout the birth of the Saurian Union. The one he had called the Shadow of the False Nightwings was someone whom he thought of often. He knew he owed his freedom to her. Having witnessed the aftermath of Sandalwood's plan, Orlek understood at last what his former companion wanted. Years ago, they conceived a version of this plan. Now Orlek found he wished Sandalwood could be present to witness the reality of it. Alone with his thoughts, Orlek would sometimes visit the memorial to the fallen leaders of the Commonwealth. Though other than such appearances, and notwithstanding his duties as a master physician of the state, Orlek led a very private life. Few would have guessed that he once was one of the most accomplished rites conductors in the history of the Nightwings. History, of course, so ensure we shall not forget. We will not forget. Alright. Last down here. Let's go. After the final liberation rite, Lyndal refused to believe that the rites truly ended. He would sit through night after consecutive nights, staring into the blackness of the sky, awaiting any kind of sign that he might gain another chance at freedom. No such sign ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority once liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Lyndal dismissed them as weak fools. He insisted rather forcefully that any evening now the stars would shine for him again, mark the way towards his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The others in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that, the exile known as Lyndal the Liar was never seen again. However, there have been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Lyndal's cruel countenance, suggesting he yet lives. Oh, okay. Maybe you will learn some freaking mercy, you dick. Exactly. If you were nicer, I would have let you go. I would have gone out of my way to make sure you got freedom. I did that for a number of the other exiles, but you were too much of a floppy cock, so I refused. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, the lone minstrel bade the remaining Nightwings take the Black Wagon and seek their fortunes elsewhere in the downside. Their parting was heartfelt, but brief. He remained there at the summit of Mount Lodiel with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycle. That's a good way to go. Good way to spend your life. Neither Tariq nor Celeste were ever seen again. We know all this now through song attributed to them. Some claim these songs originated in the taverns of the Saurian Union and merely were imbued with weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from downside corroborated each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggests these minstrels were heralds of the scribes. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed the world we know and rejoined their patrons. That's why she looks like such a beautiful angel. Because she's literally from the gods. One of their famous songs describes another, simpler outcome, that the two gave up their duties to the rites in favor of a life that they could share together. Oh, that's a good way. That's a good thing. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and such songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our times. There it is. There is one more account which warrants mention. The Nightwings conduct the rites under the guidance of a reader. Little is known of her. However, some accounts of her begin to paint a picture. We know she was of common birth, always directionless and prone to misremembering at times. The journey to the downside left her close to death. It was then that the Nightwings found her. They brought her forth from the brink. She showed them the path. She pressed onward with the others. She did not know how far their path would lead. Thus did the cycle of the rites commence its final turns. When the final rite arrived, the reader's freedom was at stake. In the end, however, she remained in exile. From that point on, accounts of her diverge. It is said the voice, which troubled her, she never heard again. Yea! Some say she helped improve the lives of their downside exiles. Though whether that is true, only she knows. I know, and I did that. Someday, perhaps, that reader's own star shall emerge. Then it shall pierce the dark of night in all of its brilliant glory. Until such time, and ever after, all of us give thanks. Oh. Theme. Credits theme. This is getting me. I'm getting the goosebumps. Everybody turn it up. I think so. They're honoring us. There they are. There's our friends. Oh. You are no deserter. Yeah, Captain Joe. She's with her friends, though. She's with us. Rookie. Mm-hmm. Tell me about him. Thank you, Ashley Barrett and Doreen Kolb, for making me cry. Okay. She's with Tizo, her best friend. You sweet child. Tizo. Thank you, Tizo. I love you all. Thank you, Sir Gilman. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, everyone. She's got feet. Show feet. Together. The guy who's singing is Rookie's voice? Holy shit, that's awesome. Oud Milde too? Whoa. That's awesome.
Turned
Yeah.
He remained till the end.
Aw. And the minstrel. Oh yeah, and the minstrel. You're right, Mama. Gertrude's got a body. I'll give her that. She got a body. It's us. Hit me. Hit me with the good shit. Together. Everybody sing. The end. Follow stars together. Oh, there's everybody. All there. Our little group. Beautiful. A freaking experience. This is not just a game. This is an experience. What's all this? Nobody's crying. Who put these tears in my eyes? This beautiful library. Looking out on the reformed Saurian Union. All the triumvirate signs. It's beautiful. Do I do anything? The end. Oh, I fucking love this game. Is that it? True Nightwing's campaign mode unlocked. Alright. I assume that's just hard mode. Like very hard mode. Well, we did it. We did it. We went extra long today, but that's okay because it was totally worth it. I want to thank everybody who experienced any part of this journey with us. Through episode 1 till now. Thank you for joining us, whether you were chatting with me or whether you were lurking, anything like that. No matter how much you were involved or how little you were involved, I don't care. You were a great person. Thank you for sharing this game with me. I fucking love it. One of my favorite games of all time. I always loved it. But playing it again with this context, it's truly become one of my favorite games of all time. Top 5, without a doubt. I love this game so freaking much. If at any point you play or you're watching this and you thought about going for it, take the plunge. It goes on sale a lot because it's old. So if you're strapped for cash, wait a little while and I'm sure it'll come out. You've already seen what the worst things can happen are, which is what I did. And it still worked out really well. So go about it your own way. See what happens when friggin' Manly Tender Staff goes free. What happens if you let out Lyndall the Liar? What happens if Wolfred goes out? What happens if the plan's success rate is, like 90%? Do the High Wing Remnants still attack? Can the High Wing Remnants still attack if Tamitha doesn't get out? Who knows? I don't know. But I love this game. Please, please, please play it. I will forever be an advocate for this game. It does not get enough love. I will champion this game till I die. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. I will go in exile for this game. And I think that's it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me. We're playing something new next time. I still plan on playing, streaming on Wednesday, so I hope to see you then as well. Take care of yourselves. Don't be afraid to cry. Cry for some good shit. I got out some good emotions today, and I feel freaking fantastic. This is the best I've felt in a while. Sometimes you need a good cry, and this game gave it to me. So don't be afraid to cry. Men, don't be afraid. Fuck toxic masculinity. You let it out. You let that shit out. You can do it. I believe in you. I think that's it. That's all I got. At any point you want to hear more of my thoughts about this game, join in on another stream. I plan on doing like a ranking the Nightwings thing soon, so we can chat more about that later. I think that's it. Have a wonderful day, everyone.